The boat moved slowly across water so clear it felt impossible to imagine any danger in that place. The morning sun lit the ocean's surface with an almost hypnotic glow, and the shoreline appeared on the horizon like a promise of untouched paradise. White sand, tall palms, dense forest stretching as far as the eye could see. No sign of buildings, no human sound, no trail of smoke. For a few moments, it seemed like just another forgotten tropical island. Then the engine was cut. Silence dropped over everyone on board like a weight, and in that silence, they appeared. At first, only shadows among the trees, dark shapes moving with speed and precision. Then human figures, nearly naked, their bodies painted, holding long bows and sharpened spears. Their eyes were fixed on the boat. There was no curiosity in them, no surprise, only intent. One of the men stepped forward onto the sand, raised his bow, and pulled the string tight. The arrow pointed directly at the boat. No warning, no attempt at communication. The message was unmistakable: leave or die. North Sentinel Island, lost in the Bay of Bengal, is considered the most isolated inhabited place on Earth. A territory where the modern world simply does not exist, and where the presence of any outsider is treated as an invasion to be met with immediate violence. Here lives a people who were never conquered, never colonized, never assimilated. A people who have crossed thousands of years of human history without significantly changing their way of life. While empires rose and fell, while cities expanded and technology reshaped the planet, they remained exactly as they were. Hunters, gatherers, warriors, the Sentinelese. No one knows how many of them there are. Estimates range from a few dozen to a few hundred individuals. There are no official records, no census, no direct studies. No researcher has lived among them. No journalist has ever interviewed a member of the tribe. No government holds concrete data about their language, religion, or social structure. Everything we know comes from distant observation and from encounters that ended badly, very badly. The island is part of Indian territory, but in practice it belongs to no one. It is a forbidden zone, surrounded by legal restrictions and maritime patrols. Approaching within 5 kilometers is a crime. But the reason is not only to protect visitors, it is to protect the Sentinelese themselves. After thousands of years in isolation, their immune systems have not developed defenses against common diseases. A simple flu, a mild respiratory virus, something that barely affects a healthy adult in any modern city, could completely devastate the island's population. History has already proven this. In the 19th century, during British colonial expansion in the region, a military expedition decided to explore North Sentinel. Soldiers landed and moved into the forest, finding abandoned villages. After some time, they captured several inhabitants, 2 adults and a few children, and took them off the island. The adults died within days, most likely from infectious diseases to which they had no immunity. The surviving children were returned to the island, along with gifts. This episode, small in the scale of global history, may have deeply marked the tribe's collective memory. To them, strangers from the sea brought death. Not just danger, but invisible death. Since then, any approach has been treated as hostility. Decades later, in the 20th century, Indian anthropologists attempted to establish peaceful contact. Their methods were cautious. Boats approached slowly, keeping a safe distance. Objects were left on the shore as offerings: coconuts, metal pots, simple tools. Sometimes nothing happened. Other times, figures appeared in the forest, watching from afar. And on many occasions, arrows were fired. In one rare moment, a few Sentinelese approached the beach and collected the gifts. There were no friendly gestures, no communication, just a quick retrieval and a return to the forest, like cautious animals facing something unknown. These encounters revealed something extraordinary. They knew other humans existed in the world. They understood that boats were made by people. They recognized the value of metal objects, and yet they chose to reject all of it. It was not ignorance, it was a decision. One of the boldest attempts occurred in the 1970s and 1980s, when scientific teams repeatedly approached the island, trying to build trust. On one occasion, researchers managed to get closer to the beach than ever before. The Sentinelese responded by advancing in formation, armed, shouting, making it unmistakably clear that outside presence would not be tolerated. The contact was immediately abandoned. No progress was made, and perhaps none ever would be. In 2004, one of the largest natural disasters in recent history struck the Indian Ocean. An underwater earthquake triggered a massive tsunami that devastated entire countries, killed hundreds of thousands of people, and reshaped coastal regions. For days, no one knew what had happened to North Sentinel Island. There was real concern that the tribe had been wiped out. Without technology, without warning systems, without infrastructure, survival seemed unlikely. Helicopters were sent to check. As the aircraft approached the island, flying low over the beach, a figure emerged from the forest. A man holding a bow. He walked onto the sand, positioned himself beneath the helicopter, and fired an arrow. There was no panic, no call for help, only hostility. The pilot reported that others soon appeared, also armed, staring upward with visible anger. They were alive, and they did not want help. This moment stunned anthropologists around the world. Surviving a tsunami without technology requires deep environmental knowledge. Perhaps they recognized natural warning signs, the unnatural retreat of the sea, animal behavior, subtle changes in the land, and moved to higher ground before the wave arrived. Ancestral knowledge passed down through generations, knowledge that modern civilization often ignores. But it was in 2018 that the island returned to global headlines in a shocking way. A young American missionary, driven by religious conviction, decided he needed to bring his faith to the most isolated tribe on the planet. He knew it was illegal, he knew it was dangerous, he knew death was a real possibility. Still, he went. He paid local fishermen to take him secretly to the island at night. He landed alone, carrying only a few belongings, a Bible, and the belief that he was fulfilling a divine mission. The next morning, fishermen watched from a distance as he walked along the shore. Figures soon emerged from the forest. Arrows were fired. Days later, witnesses reported seeing his body being dragged across the sand and buried. The Indian government chose not to recover the body. A rescue operation would have endangered both the team and the tribe, and violated policies designed to protect their isolation. The world reacted with shock, debate, and controversy. Some saw the missionary as a martyr, others saw him as someone who knowingly ignored the consequences of his actions. But for the Sentinelese, it was not a historical event. It was just another intrusion. And that may be the most unsettling aspect of the island. For us, every contact attempt is extraordinary. For them, it is simply another stranger arriving from the sea, and the response remains the same: immediate hostility. The true depth of the mystery goes beyond violence. We do not know how they live day to day. We do not know how they raise children, how they choose leaders, how they handle conflict or illness. We do not know their stories, their myths, or their beliefs. They exist outside the historical record. An entire human population living without documentation, without writing, without modern technology, and yet still surviving, thriving, and successfully defending their territory. Genetically, they are believed to be direct descendants of some of the earliest human populations to migrate into South Asia tens of thousands of years ago. In a sense, they are a living window into humanity's deep past. While the rest of the world transformed, they remained. And that raises an uncomfortable question. What does progress really mean? For modern civilization, progress means technology, economic growth, urban expansion, global communication. But these advances have come with war, environmental destruction, inequality, and a deep dependence on complex systems. The Sentinelese live without any of that. They do not need electricity, they do not need fuel, they do not rely on global supply chains, they do not face traffic, pollution, or financial crises. They live directly from the land and the sea, and they have done so for thousands of years. Perhaps their isolation is not only geographic, perhaps it is philosophical. Throughout history, contact between technologically unequal civilizations has rarely ended well for the more vulnerable side. Disease, exploitation, cultural loss, forced assimilation, entire peoples vanished after first contact with the outside world. The Sentinelese seem to understand this instinctively. Every arrow fired at an intruder can be seen as an act of collective survival. Today, satellites orbit the planet, mapping every corner of the Earth. Surveillance systems monitor oceans and forests. Aircraft cross the skies continuously. Humanity has built a global network of near-constant presence, and yet there is a small point on the map where none of that applies. North Sentinel Island remains essentially outside the world. No roads lead there, no cell signal, no infrastructure, no local authority. Only dense forest, silent beaches, and a people who continue to live as their ancestors did thousands of years ago. At night, when the sky fills with stars, there is no artificial light to obscure them, no engine noise, no distant glow of cities on the horizon, only the sound of the ocean, the wind, and the living wild. A silence most of humanity will never experience. Perhaps that is why the island fascinates us so deeply. On a planet that feels fully explored, mapped, and connected, it represents something rare, a place where our presence is not dominant, a place where humanity is not one, where a completely different version of what it means to be human still exists. And maybe the most unsettling question is not who the Sentinelese are, but who we have become. Because while the modern world moves toward increasingly complex technologies, artificial intelligence, space colonization, and global digital networks, there is a small human community living without any of it, and seemingly without needing it. North Sentinel Island is not just a forbidden place, it is a mirror, a reminder that human history could have followed different paths, that progress is neither universal nor inevitable, and that even today, entire worlds still exist beyond the reach of civilization. Some secrets remain untouched, not because they are impossible to uncover, but because the cost of uncovering them would be too high. Perhaps the greatest respect we can offer is simply distance, to allow that small piece of land to continue existing on its own terms, without interference, without exploitation, without invasive curiosity. A territory where the modern world ends at the tide line. A place no one can enter, and where, perhaps for the first time in a long time, humanity must accept that not everything was meant to be conquered. If you want to keep exploring the deepest, most unsettling and fascinating mysteries of human history, subscribe to The Hidden, because some secrets are still out there, waiting or protected.